Hey everyone, so I wanted to talk about something here that I found really interesting, and this has to do with an interview that Scott Gimple actually did, and it's regarding Stephen Yeun's return to The Walking Dead, I guess technically Dead City, right? And whether or not that would actually happen. If you do remember earlier this year, like literally right in the beginning of this year, the actor who plays Herschel on The Walking Dead Dead City talked about whether or not we could see Stephen Yeun coming back and all that, or he said that, you know, he would love to see that or something if it was like a flashback or something like that. I can't remember exactly what he said, but yeah, Scott Gimple actually talked about it. So I do want to get into that and talk about the possibility of it happening in season 3, or I guess the final season of Dead City. So before going further, make sure to be a subscriber if you want to get all my Walking Dead content like this. I will be reviewing Welcome to Derry later on tonight, so stay tuned for that. I'm excited for episode 3. I was going to do a review of episodes 1 and 2, but at this point I might as well just review episode 3 because it's airing tonight. And yeah, I'm excited for episode 3. So stay tuned for that. I also will be doing a live stream very soon. So yeah, I'm excited to actually be doing that again now that I'm back and doing videos and everything. So yeah, but let's get into this. So Scott Gimple actually did this interview with Deadline. Well, actually, no, it wasn't Deadline. It was Screen Rant, but I'm seeing this here in an article from Deadline. And he was asked about, you know, could we actually see Stephen Yeun as Glenn come back to The Walking Dead in any way? And this interview, it seems like, was done after the season 2 finale. So it makes sense as to why I wasn't really, you know, focused on it too much, because the finale just aired and there was a lot of stuff going on. But Gimple actually talked about this, and he said, I think it comes to mind all the time. In some ways, it's a pretty obvious way to go, but it would obviously be enjoyable for all of us. Stephen is a remarkably busy dude, though. Not to say that these folks aren't. You never know, I guess I'd say, but we never went that far with it. So to me, when he's saying that there, I think that obviously it is a possibility, but I just think that there has been a lot of things with the story where it just hasn't really made sense. And so they never really went that far with it or never thought to like reach out or anything like that. I think to me, it makes a lot of sense because if you're looking at The Walking Dead and what happened there for their final story, it was like, I mean, there wasn't any closure there for the most part, right? Like having Glenn come back for the final episode, I think just wouldn't have made a lot of sense. Also, it would have been way too much if you consider that Rick and Michonne also were in that episode, right? And it was like their return because they were gone for a while at that point. So I think it was just a lot of stuff happening then that I just don't think it made a lot of sense. And especially with Dead City, like if you're going to have Glenn show up in a hallucination scene or a flashback or just like, I mean, honestly, I would prefer a hallucination scene over a flashback because I think a flashback, like, it just doesn't really make a lot of sense. But a hallucination scene, I think, would work so well. That would be absolutely incredible. But I do think that it wouldn't have made a lot of sense for season 1 and 2 because of just where the story was at. And, you know, I don't know if I had similar thoughts to this when I talked about it when the actor who plays Herschel talked about it earlier this year. But to me, I think it does need to happen at some point. But you only really have one chance to do it. And I think it would have to be like the final season or like Maggie's like final scene ever or like her final episode or just whatever it's going to be, right? And it would have to make sense, I think, with what is happening with the story. Because again, like if you're looking at the very final episode of The Walking Dead and you had Stephen Yeun show up there and say it was something to do with Maggie's story, it would have been way too much with the overall story of The Walking Dead and with like Rick and Michonne showing up at the end. It would have been way too much for all of that to happen, right? So I think if it's going to be like something where it's like her final episode or like a final moment for her, maybe it's like in the final season and it's like one of the episodes towards the end. But again, it depends on the story and what's happening in that last episode because it also could work there as well. I think that this is a possibility that we could see happen in the future. I know that Stephen Yeun, you know, does seem to be very busy. Like he's doing Invincible. I know a lot of that is like voice work and stuff. And he has a lot of other roles in like movies and other shows and stuff like that. Like he's been very successful. And, you know, honestly, I would say like when you're looking at The Walking Dead and the actors that have left The Walking Dead, I feel like, you know, the most successful actors must be Stephen Yeun and Jon Bernthal. Because Stephen Yeun has been in a lot of stuff. Maybe it's not necessarily like the biggest projects in terms of like Marvel and stuff like that, right? Like, you know, when you compare it to Jon Bernthal and he's like Punisher, and he's literally going to be Punisher in the new Spider-Man movie, right? Brand New Day. So I think that, Steven Yeun, I mean, didn't he win like an Oscar or an Emmy or something like that? I think it was an Emmy, right? Like he won something. I swear I saw something in the last like couple of years where he won something, because I know it was a really incredible moment. Maybe he was nominated, but I'm pretty sure he actually like won that award. So I'm not sure, but I think that for him to come back in any way, I think it would be really incredible. Like it's been a long time, right? Like it's been about almost 10 years now since he's been off The Walking Dead. And I think by the time this all wraps up, it'll be more than that. And to come back for like a little scene with Maggie and like have that be the ending, of her story and all that, I think would be, it would work really well. So let's actually talk about, when this could happen or how this could work. Season 3 of Dead City is filming right now. And so I do actually want to talk about this a little bit more in depth, probably later this week, because Jeffrey Dean Morgan talked about season 3 a lot and hyped it up a lot, like saying that there's a lot of like big stuff happening. And so I know the actors hype up their seasons all the time. I know that, but there's going to be something, I think, really big that will happen in season 3, because season 1 and 2, just overall from how people are viewing those seasons, aren't really the most well received. And I think they want to change a lot of stuff up here and make things really exciting and just like, you know what I mean? Like they literally changed the showrunner. Like Seth Hoffman is there. I think that this season is going to be a pretty big season where they're going to have to prove a lot. Like if they're going to be doing a season 4, I think that obviously AMC is going to want to see something from that, unless season 3 is the end. And so I do want to talk about that. Like season 3 could be the last season if this season doesn't come out until 2027. I think it would be insane if we had to wait that long. Like, actually, that would be like, what are you doing with The Walking Dead? Like, you have to have things feel more exciting and have more shows on coming out per year, not less. Like, I think that's the thing with Dead City. Like, The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon, it's coming out every single year. So you have that. But Dead City, you had to wait 2 years between seasons 1 and 2. So if we have to wait another 2 years for season 3, that's a lot. And so season 4 is a rumor right now, and we'll see where that goes. I just hope season 3 comes out next year. And if it does, I don't see Steven Yeun being a part of that season. Obviously, I think that'd be too much. But season 4, if that is the final season or whatever the final season is going to be, I could see it. I could definitely see it. And I think that it would work. Now, how I would want it done is I would honestly like to have like a hallucination scene. I think that when you're looking back at scenes like the one with Shane and Rick, right? Or Herschel and Rick, or like Sasha and Rick, right? Like it's really amazing to have those scenes. Although with Sasha, it wasn't as impactful because, I mean, she just died like 2 seasons before that, maybe 1 season. I think it was 2 seasons before that, right? It was a season 7 finale. So like, for Shane and Herschel, they were gone for a long time at that point. So to see them back again, and like, also, it was a hallucination scene where it didn't make a lot of sense, but Rick was like hallucinating a bunch of stuff, and like, the characters were there and just trying to give him strength to like do this and that. And I think if Glenn came back in a scene like that where he was like giving Maggie strength to do this or that, or like whatever, maybe it could be different where it's just sort of like not even any dialogue. And like, it's the final scene. We see Maggie go back to the hilltop. She's there with Herschel, and then the camera's pulling away, but then you just kind of see Glenn standing like behind them kind of, but maybe it's more just like, he's always with them. Like maybe he's not actually there. I mean, obviously he's not actually there, but it's just more like he's always with them, even though it's just them there. Glenn is always with them and will be forever, right? So I think that it would work really well, and it would be a really amazing way, I think, to sort of wrap up that story there of, I guess Maggie's story just in general, like, Glenn, Maggie, Herschel, like just the whole family, like to wrap up that story. I think it would be really incredible to see. I mean, you could make this argument with a lot of characters. I know, like having Carl come back, or like, you know what I mean? Like you could make that argument just in general that a lot of characters could come back. And I think that they definitely should do that. If some of the actors don't want to come back, right? Then like if there are some actors that do want to come back, bring them back for sure. I think it would be really cool. But overall, I do think that this is going to be something that does happen in the future. Like, I really do believe it. Like, there's no way, like, in a couple of years, like, say it's Maggie's, like, final story or something like that. I don't see a way where it just ends and like there's nothing there with Glenn, right? Like if you're just thinking of what Maggie's final scene is going to be like, whether it's the hilltop or anywhere else, I just feel like there's going to be something there with Glenn, right? And it makes sense to me, especially with Herschel as well. I think that there's going to be something, really incredible, I think, for the characters going forward. Like the one thought that I do have, regarding like Maggie's future and stuff is whether or not the character dies. Like, imagine if Maggie actually died in the future and then like the final scene was just Herschel, like on his own, or like maybe he's the leader of the Hilltop, right? And it's just like he's that representation of Maggie and Glenn and just like what they were, and now he's the leader and leading the charge to a new future. Like, it would be so sad and like bittersweet and everything, but that's the stuff where when you get into the very final seasons of all these character stories, like those things are going to come up. People are going to be talking about that. Like, is that a possibility? So yeah, I hope that we do see this at some point here. I imagine that we're probably not going to talk about this too much more going forward, but we'll have to wait and see. I really can't wait to get our first look at Dead City Season 3. They're filming that right now, as well as Season 4 of The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon, because I find it weird that we haven't seen anything from it yet, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. Anyways, I'm gonna leave it here. Definitely post all your thoughts down below. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.